Thank you. It's now time for our next session, Bridging Worlds, Miami's Emergence as a Global Luxury Market and its Links with London, presented in association with Mast Capital. Please welcome the panelists and our chair, Spear's Editor-in-Chief, Edwin Smith.
Thank you very much, Steph. Yes, I'm delighted to say for this session I am joined, starting way out over on that side, by Michael Patrizio, Managing Director at Mast Capital. Next to him, there's Daniel Daggers, Founder and CEO of DDRE Global. Next to him, there's Neil Porter, Founding Partner of Gustafson, Porter and Bowman. And next to me over here, Hamish Brown, Partner at 1508 London. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for being here. Now, a quick word. You'll notice it's the second all-male panel of the morning. That's not a Spears policy in general. Over the course of the day, I'm pleased to say we have achieved perfect equality. There are 12 male speakers and 12 female speakers. It's just that we've stacked the men towards the morning. But let's not let that be an issue as we discuss the topic at hand, which of course is the Miami luxury market and the real estate market specifically. It's boomed in recent years, quickly becoming a leading global hub for entrepreneurs and luxury living. Michael, can I start with you and ask you to tell us a little bit about the market? Some top-line figures. Prices have risen, according to some analysis, almost 50% in real terms since the end of 2019, 7%, I think, in 2024. Tell me if this sounds wrong to you. But can you give us a sense of what you're seeing on the ground from your perspective? What's happening?
Well, first, thank you for having us. A lot of friendly faces in the crowd that I see. In general, the market, I think one of the key points with Miami is that Miami is behaving like a very mature market. It's behaving like a London or like a New York. There's consistent stability that's been happening in Miami, and I'd say for the last 15 years or so. We have seen a tremendous growth in both appreciation and demand, and that's really come from, on the back of the pandemic, that was part of it, but a big influx of people coming from the Northeast and, quite frankly, the UK. We have, at Paragon, for instance, our project on Miami Beach, 37%, which is a staggering number, 37% of our international buyers are actually from the UK. Which is an interesting point, I think. It's a very, very strong number. But in general, I'd say the appreciation that we've been seeing has been sustainable. It's been driven on the back of major financial institutions and businesses relocating to Florida. We've had Blackstone, of course, Citadel, Ken Griffin's company, Citadel, Microsoft, Apple, that have chosen Miami as the place to do business. As recently, FIFA has opened up a major headquarters in Coral Gables, which is also a section of Miami. But there's been a lot of demand, and I think the demand has obviously driven price. We're in a supply and demand market. Has really positioned us as a really global destination and city, more than just sun and beaches. We've had a tremendous uptick in culture. I do realize I'm saying culture in the cultural capital of the world, but culture is more than just museums and theater. Our food scene has really grown. I think I would argue that the food in Miami may be better than New York these days, with numerous Michelin-starred chefs. From Massimo Bottura just opened, from I believe his restaurant in Milan, So at Art Basel culture, probably about 10 years ago, it was when Art Basel really took off. Not 15. 2010. I'm aging myself up here. 2010 was when Art Basel really took off, and that really brought we'll say the focus on Miami, and it really has become a place where people want to live and be.
Fantastic. And I mean, you mentioned numerous names there, including Ken Griffin. Jeff Bezos has bought 2 properties next to each other on Indian Creek Island, $147 million. So this market is absolutely booming. But Daniel, there's a lot of places in the world, a lot of nice places in the world with a lot of nice houses. You work with internationally mobile buyers who can pretty much take their pick. Can you talk about the kind of equation that sits before them and the decisions that they're taking and the reasons for those decisions?
Yeah, I think it's, firstly, thank you for having me, everybody. Miami's become this destination that previously we would party at. You forgot about the sangrias and the sort of South American spice that the city's got, which is amazing. The ultra high net worth mobile buyer is not looking for. Firstly, it's hyper mobile, and they're looking for good tax status, a place that they can raise a family, good security and weather conditions, good mobility through the city, and then cultural events, and it has to be relevant. And so we are definitely seeing people moving there. It is becoming one of the most convincing factors is weather and all the other elements that I've stated. But Miami is a place that I feel is battling it out with Dubai, okay? Because we're seeing people, and I used to go to Miami loads, and my friends still go loads. I just haven't had the opportunity to go recently. But we would go in the winter months, and now there's a significant choice for these ultra high net worths. Where do they want to spend their time? They've got multiple residences all over the world, and they're going to use them for cultural events and times when weather conditions are positive. And so they're looking at the winter months, and they're saying, where do we want to go? Do we want to go to South Africa? Well, there's not enough going on in Cape Town for us. So where's my choice? And the choice is the Middle East, Dubai, maybe even Abu Dhabi, and Miami. And we're seeing very significantly an absolute dissection of who's going west and who's going east. And anyone who comes from a Middle Eastern, Southeast Asian background is going to Dubai, and anyone who's European or Western to a certain extent is choosing Miami as that destination of choice. And it is very compelling. Because if I said to you, where do you want to go in your summer months? You want to be in your bikini if you're bikini ready. And you want to be on the beach. I'm not. You want to be on the beach and you want to be able to enjoy yourself. And Miami is absolutely the spot that people really focus on, but it's not just that anymore. Not just that.
And there are all kinds of buyers, as you allude to. I mean, Ken Griffin is someone who's been noted in the press as having spent more than $1 billion on real estate in the Tri-County area. I think you've had some. I think you may have known him at some point. I mean, have you spoken to him and others about the things that are most attractive about Miami?
I wouldn't disclose whether or not I've spoken to him about it or not. Client confidentiality in that. But you should really just follow their actions. They don't make decisions off the cuff. They're very considered with their view, and we're seeing it. One topic that I didn't mention was that we're seeing a lot of our Jewish clients moving to Miami. Okay, because they're a bit concerned about the security in the UK. And so I've got a couple of clients that have bought properties there very recently and a couple out there at the moment. That is one of the main drivers. And that's a big consideration, the security in Miami.
And let me add something, though. You mentioned Ken Griffin and you mentioned Jeff Bezos. They're living in Miami. Like, they are making that their primary residence. The tax situation, the business-friendly environment, like, they've actually relocated. Ken Griffin is actively involved, and we know this firsthand, being based as we are in Miami, in the schools. He's making sure that the schools are up to snuff and have availability and capacity. But these folks are actually living in Miami. They're moving there. They're spending their time there. So that's just a little point that I wanted to add.
And I mean, that's part of the story that you were talking about, Michael, with the maturation of this market. I just wanted to raise that there's something called the UBS Global Real Estate Bubble Index, and Miami's performance in recent years, the growth, the uptick in values and volumes has put it near the top of that list. But I suspect, because of the things that you've said already, you're not unduly concerned.
Yeah, we're really not concerned. The word bubble in Miami has a very, very different connotation than it does in other places around the world. Miami, I'll say pre-2010, really behaved as very much a boom and bust market where you'd see huge swings, huge percentage swings. Since 2010, it hasn't done that. So I think the comment to this is, what is the definition of a bubble? It's behaving like a mature market, which means you don't see 20% drops. You know, you might see 3, 5, and then followed by a 3 to 5% increase. So it really, it's an interesting metric, but for me it'd be what would you define, a bubble as, right?
Sure. Yeah, their index is subject to sort of mathematical stuff that doesn't necessarily map exactly to the real world, of course. Yeah.
They're also benchmarking to past existence. And the thing about Miami now is that there's wealth creation that's taking place in the city. And that wasn't something that people would really think about in Miami. It was just party central. But now you've got very big business leaders that are setting camp there. They're living there. And then what happens is you have middle tier people that want to be top tier people wanting to be nearby. And that is happening en masse.
And Michael, just one other thing about the kind of unique characteristics of Miami, the things that make it a great place to live, the sun, the sand, the sea, potentially also make it difficult to do construction projects. Are there specific sort of measures that you take and studies that you do to work out where to build and how to build? Is it different from building in London, where you have before?
Obviously I do have some experience here in London. I would say one of the unique things about Miami and I'll say the southeast coast of Florida is it's effectively an island. You have the Atlantic Ocean on one side, and you have the Everglades on the other. So there's a finite amount of land that can be developed. So that makes it a very high barrier to entry. Yes, there is land, but the prime land and the prime locations for super prime schemes, prime schemes is relatively limited. So that I'd say that plays a big part into it. Is just that it's almost an island.
Very good. Just one moment quickly to remind the audience now that there is the option to put questions to our panelists by Slido, that's sli.do.com, and use the hashtag Spears500Live. They'll come up here and we can put them to the panelists later, and of course you can put your hand up too. Michael, can we talk now about this London-Miami connection? Because you've worked extensively in London in the past. You were the CEO of the Qatari DR here in the UK, working on projects like Chelsea Barracks. Can you talk a bit about what's going on and why these two markets are a bit more connected than we might have thought, actually?
Yeah, that's actually a really, really interesting question. I mean, yes, I was here for approximately 4 years as chief executive of Qatari DR UK Limited. And that's where I met the two gentlemen over there on the other sofa. Working on Chelsea Barracks. I think one of the key things that we've seen is that a lot of these ultra high net worth buyers and customers all kind of play in the same sandbox or pool. And there are certain components of a great property that resonate with them. And I think one of the key things is authenticity. Whatever the offering is has to be really authentic. It has to resonate. And there's really no better place for authenticity than Europe and the UK for that. And part of what we found was when I left the UK, which was back in 2015, 2016, and returned back to the US. Did a project there with Renzo Piano as the architect, and we were very surprised. I was very surprised that 10% of the purchasers there came from the UK, and so we kind of noticed a trend of UK ultra high net worths moving to Florida, to Miami, and then we put that together with our team for our new project in Miami Beach, Paragon Miami Beach, designed by OMA Rem Koolhaas as the architect, Tara Bernard, based here in the UK, as the interior designer, and then of course Neil Porter of Gustafson Porter as the landscape architect. And what they've done is they've brought intrinsic, important components, authentic components, here from the UK into the design and the offering of Paragon. And then, of course, our other project, Cipriani Residences Miami, branded residence in more city location. We worked with 1508, which I believe you guys first did the penthouse at Chelsea Barracks, and of course Neil did all of the wonderful squares at Chelsea Barracks. Project put a lot of gray hairs onto my head, but 1508 came in with for Cipriani residences, and that resonated. It's a richness. It's you know, here in the UK and in Europe, you have third, fourth generation craftsmen who are building the projects. In Miami, we don't have that. We don't have that. So what we're trying to do is, and I know successfully we've been doing it, is to kind of elevate the offering and really truly deliver what customers, buyers, ultra high net worths are looking for. And I think that was one of the ties. And I'm going to come back to the authenticity, because authenticity is really, really critical. There's nothing that super wealthy or we'll say highly intelligent people can sniff through faster than if something's inauthentic. It resonates immediately. So you have to be real. Everything has to be real, authentic, and selfishly, we've done very well with that. Paragon, we're I believe 79% sold out, and we've sold one of our lower penthouses at $7,664 a foot, which is a record on the Southeast Coast. At Cipriani, we broke the 3,000 a square foot barrier with our lower penthouse there, which is something that you only saw on beach properties in the past. So we've been really successful entering these markets and submarkets by tying in, this richness of design. Neil has these wonderful little pockets of discovery on the grounds of Paragon that are the materiality, and I know I'm kind of stepping into your domain here, but the materiality is very reminiscent of what you'd find, here in Europe or here in the UK. The materials of the crushed stone, and it's things like that that are resonating, and it's added to our success.
Let's bring Neil in here, but before we do that, can I ask our friends at the back of the room in the AV team to just bring up the next slide, because I think we can show what the Paragon looks like on the screen, if you're able to do that. Do you have the capability? There it is. And so, as if by magic, Neil, perhaps you could talk us through what you have done for this project, or what you will be doing, because it's still under construction and scheduled for delivery in 2027, I think.
I mean, it's a really interesting move. Obviously, working on Chelsea Barracks, creating a series of gardens, landscapes that are truly authentic to our culture here in London. Understanding, the plants, types of spaces that people feel comfortable with here, and then not bringing that to Florida, because Florida's a very different place, and you could easily make that mistake. Everybody wants the same thing, but no, they want an authentic experience in Miami. So we really had to go away and research and understand our context, understand the plants we wanted to bring into the gardens, and also understand that actually there is one common denominator that, in this day and age, people are dealing with incredible sort of complexity in their lives. And what they need is a place where they can relax and chill out and restore themselves, and then, move back into that demanding world. So the gardens are very much part of the whole Paragon experience. The sort of outdoor living, the ability to just move easily between interior, exterior, have been really important to the way we've been thinking about our design. And I think, obviously, once built, it will be proven that is the right type of sort of thinking that is needed in a project like this. So there's masses of plants, slowly moving water, very, very calm experience, where, that moving from that fast living to something slower and restorative is truly important.
What are some of the best or most interesting plants that you've used?
Well, we had to get very much into palms, and there are a huge diversity of palms that we could choose from. We also had interesting problems with being on a coastal site. Salt in the air is very problematic for many plants, so how to protect the plants that sit further inland, and the soils that would obviously generate the right quality of a lush tropical landscape have been, really important to the eventual success of the gardens.
Good. And can we bring up next the picture of the Cipriani residences? There we go. So, Hamish, this is the project that you've been very closely involved with, along with Michael and other members of the Mast Capital team. Can you talk us through it?
Absolutely. Well, we first met Michael working on Chelsea Barracks. I think one of the things that, we popped up in Miami, and I think it was hopefully a relief for you to suddenly see us there. But I think for us, it was working with someone that really understood this authenticity. And I think as a business, we strive to try and create spaces which truly have an emotional impact with the people living in those spaces. And for us to get that, it's about, we often say there's only two ways to buy anything in life. One is logic and the other is emotion. I logically need to tell the time, therefore I'll buy a Casio watch. The other one is I need to tell the time, I'll buy a Rolex or a Patek Philippe. There's no logical reason. However, sometimes you just want it. And I think if we can try and find that within the interiors and create spaces which ultimately when people walk into, they squeeze their partner's hand and say, I just have to have it, just have to live there. That's really our job done. And I think Michael understands that, and the team at Mast Capital understand that intrinsically. And I think that was something that resonated through Chelsea Barracks. It was definitely something that we tried to bring in here. I also think we're working with Cipriani, which is a well-loved hospitality brand, which has got a wonderful history to it and a real authenticity about the way they deliver their brand in multiple different spaces. So we had to bring that through, then really understand how people wanted to live in Miami. And I think as Miami's matured, we're seeing a different type of people. And I think it was really interesting what Daniel said about people from the West going towards Miami. And I think we have to think about that from an interiors perspective, because when you're designing spaces in, let's say, Knightsbridge or Belgravia, typically they're going to be bought by Indians or Middle Easterns, and their needs are slightly different to those of people living in, maybe want open plan kitchens, more European, more American in that regard. So we had to really think about how we're delivering space for those types of people. So, and that's a difficult thing to do when you're building something and trying to speculate who's going to buy, but that's something we try and analyze deeply, and that goes right down to the materiality. And something like Gustav from Porto, bringing the outside in is such a key part of that, bringing reflective materials and hopefully making even the most mundane things like brushing your teeth an exciting experience. So making sure when you're doing that, you're getting reflections back of the sea beyond you. So it's really thinking about every possible function you have within a property and making that as fun and exciting as possible.
And it is attracting interesting buyers who are paying top dollar for these wonderful properties. One that's entered the public sphere through reporting is that Lionel Messi is bought at the Cipriani residences. I know you can't comment on any of the buyers, and you wouldn't comment on any of the buyers, Michael, but generally, can you speak about the blend of client that you're seeing and that you're welcoming and that you're trying to attract?
Well, let me start by saying we will neither confirm nor deny who our buyers are, where they're from. We respect their privacy. Privacy is a very important component. I would say that it's interesting because they're both different submarkets. Cipriani is very much a city location. It is about lifestyle. It's about brand. Paragon is a beach environment. It's a very different clientele. The beach purchasers are folks that this is their second, third, fourth home, but they are calling it home with the way that we've designed it. They're actually moving to Miami and making it their primary domicile. Cipriani is a little bit different in that sense. Cipriani is very, very high bar, but we're seeing more of an international Latin American type buyer at Cipriani. The United States is still our primary market, but we are seeing more Mexico, Colombia, those types of purchasers at Cipriani. Cipriani is a very big building. It's 84 stories. It's a very large building, and we're delighted that in terms of construction, we are about approximately 6 months ahead of schedule on that project. They build one floor every 4 days. It's really something staggering to see. Presently, we're at the 14th, 15th floor. So they're, every week, the beautiful lady keeps growing. And Paragon as well. Paragon is starting to come out of the ground now as well. But yes, we have seen a lot. Come back to the original question. We have seen a lot of very wealthy celebrity type customers. Privacy is very, very important. Actually, I like to say that we design all of our projects kind of understanding what these customers want with privacy. So at Paragon, for instance, we look at the building as if it's like an embassy. So if you're there, you belong there. Privacy and security is very, very important. So at Paragon, we're one of, I think, 3 buildings that has an actual guardhouse before you can enter the grounds. So anyone who steps foot on that property belongs there. So we're thinking of embassy level of security and privacy for people, which is very important. Obviously, if you're talking about, international celebrities, or they don't have to be a celebrity. It just has to, if you're an ultra high net worth or high net worth, you want your privacy, you want your security. That's something that we've learned and respond to.
Very good. Daniel, can I just ask you a question about branded residences? It's a well-known phenomenon now, well-documented, that they've been very popular for some years. Where is that now? Is it still growing in popularity? Is there much headroom for branded residences? Are they more popular in some parts of the world than others? How are buyers reacting to them?
Yeah, I mean, new development is somewhat a dictator of branded residences. So if you can build new development, you will find new branded residences. The UK's very difficult when it comes to planning and new development. So we're not going to see anywhere near the same amount of branded residences in London. The way I look at it when I'm advising clients with branded residences is that it may have an impact on the value of the assets that you're selling, but it will definitely have an impact on the velocity. And we have to put our shoes in the ultra high, well, we have to put ourselves in the ultra high net worth shoes and look at their journey of purchase. Okay, what tends to happen is they will fly to a jurisdiction or fly to a neighborhood. They'll be enticed to go and have a look at new development. They'll go into a very swanky, beautiful new show suite. They'll leave. They'll think about it. They'll ask about payment structures. They'll then go to their other home somewhere else in the world. Then they'll be enticed to come back during the calendar month that is suitable, because there'll be an event. And then they will go back in and engage the sales community to potentially transact. So this is a time frame of doubt. And branded residences dilutes the question of doubt that is required to make a purchase. And it gives them a lot of confidence. It's like when an ultra high net worth walks into an apartment and they see Gaggenau appliances and Wolf appliances and Lutron lighting. Yes, they want it, but they also see it as, I've got that in my Swiss chalet, or I have that in my London apartment. And it's just a form of confirmation bias to make sure that people feel comfortable with their purchase. The thing about Miami that, and I look at this from a logic point of view, okay, is that when a client says to me, I want to build a portfolio, we'll say, okay, well, we need summer months. We need to find out where we want to be during the calendar year, and we want to have beach living. Okay, where in the world can you buy? And we know that they want branded residences. They want full service. They want to live on one floor. Okay, unless you're buying a villa. Where can you buy a brand new development? Buy into a brand new development that sits on a beach. I'm posing the question. Where else in the world can you buy a selection of branded residences that sit on a beach?
It's Dubai and Abu Dhabi, isn't it?
Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Okay. And even when you go to Dubai and Abu Dhabi, you'll find that a lot of the branded residences are inland. They don't necessarily abut the beach unless they're on one of the Palm Islands. Okay. It's very difficult. So much so that in Monaco, they went and built into the water in Meritara. So there is a very unique sales point that Miami has in comparison to anywhere else in the world. And that's why it's so desirable.
Michael, maybe you'll answer this question. Brad, how do you choose the brands that you work with? As a developer, as an investor, how do you align yourself correctly?
Well, let me just continue Daniel's comment. I think one of the big key differences where Miami and, let's say, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, the Emirates are aligned is that we're markets where we sell first and then we build. And you need to resonate when you're selling off of plan, unlike New York, London, where you build a scheme and then people actually walk into the residences. It's very important to have that. Yeah, exactly. it really it adds to the quality of the offering. The brand feels strongly about the location. It's going to meet their standards. But I think, you mentioned Dubai and Miami as, they're basically the global epicenter of branded residences, right? Like you see everything in Dubai and a lot of things in Miami. And I think the way we approach it, which is actually very important, I go back to this authentic. We look for brands that really give the ultra luxury buyer what they really want. Realistically, what do they want? A lot of buildings are going to have great views and great fit and finish and great location, et cetera. But ultimately what buyers really care about is 4 things. They want great service. They want great food. Food is an important one. They want no headaches. And the brands, whatever brand we look at, really has to hit those 3 points. The 4th thing, which is very hard because we sell and we build, is a sense of community and like-mindedness. And one of the ways that we at Mast Capital will say address that is all of our residential projects have a speakeasy that's a part of the food and beverage component, where residents and their guests can have glass of wine, a cup of coffee, to engage as a community, and that's one of the key things. But with all due respect to some of the, we'll say, kind of more extreme brands that are branding residences, what does a car brand really bring to your home? Cipriani, service, food, which really hits on those points. And that's really the way that we approach the brand. It's got to be authentic and it's got to resonate. Really at the end of the day, it has to resonate with the ultra high net worths.
Hamish, can I come to you and ask you a question about being a British business, very high-end British business, working in the States? Does that create specific challenges? Does it create new situations that you've had to deal with?
Definitely. I think it's been one of the most challenging markets we've ever worked in. I think the way in which Americans engage is demanding. And that's good. That's why they kind of strive for excellence. But the real takeaways for us is that I think they're looking to London companies like mine, is that we in London have one of the most multicultural cities in the world, and we design for different types of people, and we've got a proven track record, I suppose, as developers or designers of hitting the mark on some amazing developments and raising values to some of the best in the world. And I think a lot of that authenticity and that attention to detail and really understanding what high net worth people want and what they're looking for, we can take that to this market, certainly Miami, which is suddenly matured, and it's now attracting some of these people to live there, and we have to be able to hit that mark. And I think previously, as Michael said, it was kind of lumpy and went up and down, and I think that's exactly what we're trying to do. And frankly, I think what's been really great for us on this particular project is working with someone like Michael, who has worked here in London and who understands that sensibility and understanding exactly what it means to design for those people. So that's been that. I think one of the challenges has certainly been climate. We don't have many new buildings in London. We're working a lot with period buildings and renovation projects. So that's been definitely a new thing. Perhaps made it slightly easier. But no, I think, and there is one of the most great things about America is that they push boundaries. They're looking to do things bigger and better, as we know. And I think combining that kind of level of finesse and detail that we have in London with that ambition that Americans have.
Bigger and better, but sometimes less is more. And we believe that. We've said the word authenticity quite a few times up here today. But sometimes less is more. And, bigger isn't always better. It has to be right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I felt.
No, totally.
And Neil, kind of similar question, building on what Hamish was saying. As a British business, you've worked in your sort of portfolio as the Princess of Wales Memorial Fountain in Hyde Park, but you've worked in Abu Dhabi, you've worked in Beirut, you've worked in Singapore, you've worked in all these different places. Thinking of our audience here today who may be in a similar industry to yours or maybe in a very different one, but working with the same types of clients, is there advice that you can offer or learnings you can share with someone who's hoping to reach those clients in those different markets?
Yeah. we work in a very individual way for many different clients, often public institutions as well. I think what we bring to it is, when we don't know a place, is actually being a slight outsider looking in a way helps us to understand maybe what can make a difference. Because when you've lived somewhere a long time, you sort of get used to the place and you sort of get lazy. And I think by moving around and working in all these different places, we keep ourselves on our toes. We are based in London, so we do have a sort of certain sensibility that we can bring to projects. But I think in landscape, we're also working in a field that often is seen as a luxury. Sites that cost a fortune to buy. Finding the space for landscape is often an issue. And Paragon's one of those projects where space was found through actually slimming down the sort of footprint on the ground to ensure that there was a sort of garden experience around the building as it sort of mushrooms up from its base. People realize that having that external space is part of creating the authentic experience that everyone's been speaking about, because it's speaking about the place, its climate, what it feels like to be in that city, that location.
Sure. And we're going to come to some questions from the audience now. Both we can answer questions in the room, but I have a number that have come through on Slido. That's sli.do.com. The first, Daniel, I'll put to you if you don't mind. This is an anonymous question. Is your model better suited to London or Miami, and why?
My model?
We're not talking about the bikini comment earlier. It's the model of the business.
So for the people that don't know, we run a very similar business to the US and the continent, which is across Europe and even Asia. Actually, most of the world, which is brokerage. So we believe that everybody is a business, and we want to help, guide, support individuals in building their brand, and then working on behalf of their clients. Do we think that this is the way forward? And very simply, yes. We think that people are closest to the customer, not organizations. So let's build a business that supports the customer and the person that is going to be supporting them. We started in March 2020, which probably wasn't a great date to start. We went straight into lockdown. But we're now fourth or fifth or third in terms of most, how do I put this? Most important businesses at buying and selling real estate over £5 million across London predominantly, but now we just moved into Sussex, we're in Hertfordshire, and we're going to grow exponentially. So do we think the model is suitable? I think it's the only way forward to a certain extent.
And what about the remuneration for agents? There's a Bloomberg article recently, which was only a year after Spears did the same article, about the pay that the agents are receiving, and there's particular mention of a healthy cut of commission for some of the Sotheby's agents. I mean, has that model shaken up the London market? Is it difficult to find the right talent? How much does that matter to your business?
Yeah, talent is everything. But the article was a good article. I think what Sotheby's are doing, what DDRE are doing, which is just rattling the cage of a very traditional industry, is good because the customer's going to get a better service. And we lost sight of that. We were too busy building corporate brand, chasing market share, as opposed to focusing on the client and the customer and doing what's right for them. So you need to build a business around that. And now, because everybody's got access to customers through social media channels, you don't necessarily need an office and have the investment of an office to go and be successful. I think it was about time London had a shake-up. And I think it's great. Customer fundamentally benefits from it. and it will continue to grow. And should agents be paid the majority of the fee for the work they do? Absolutely. And you will see that accentuated as technology continues to support people and middle management gets squeezed. So you'll have tastemakers that will sit at the top of businesses, service industry businesses. I suppose I'm one of them. And then you will have a group of people that sit above them that are running their independent businesses but are guided and supported with technology. And I see this as a bit of a no-brainer, because access to information is becoming unbelievably easy, and anyone can be an expert. So people are going to buy into people, not organizations, because Stina's lovely and I adore her commitment and how hard she works and her enthusiasm, and that she runs every morning that motivates me to remain consistent. These are the little things now to why someone's going to choose to do business with people. And DDRE is a technology media marketing business that enables our people to be phenomenally successful in delivering a service. And that is what I think the future looks like.
I'll just offer any of the pillars of the London real estate industry to come back on that. Has anyone got anything to say on that point specifically just now?
Well, I have my own questions, nothing to do with necessarily what Daniel said, but I'm a broker myself, and I generally agree if you're bringing the standards up, especially if you look at the US, Middle East, if you look at what agents charge as fees, they're seen as professionals. I think the concern that you have is in the UK, the entry level in the UK, all you need is a heartbeat and you're in. Whereas if you look at the US, you need qualifications. They're seen as true professionals. Moving on to the question that I personally had, and I agree, I see similarities with especially Dubai, Miami. The concerns I have is quality of homes in Dubai compared to Miami. But they're both booming markets. Question I really have is, both markets aren't mature. When they begin to correct and slow down, where do we believe that market will then move on to after Miami? Will it be Florida or what parts of America? That's for everyone
I suppose,
on the panel.
well, thank you very much for your comment and question. Can I distill that down for you, Michael, and say, where are the next most exciting places after Miami? Miami's still coming up. Miami's still exciting. Your horizon planning, which you must do in the business, where are you focusing on?
West Palm Beach. West Palm Beach is we'll say, really the next epicenter and hub. And if anyone has spent any time, particularly in West Palm Beach recently, it's very, very walkable. And I've used the description a number of times, speaking with different designers, potential brand partners, that West Palm feels a lot like Mayfair. You know, you see a lot of the hedge fund guys, the financial people. I mean, Steve Ross, owner of the Miami Dolphins and of the Formula One Autodrome in Miami, as well as developer, that's where he started, a developer of related companies, has made it his goal to turn it into Wall Street of the South. And I would say West Palm Beach is it's already started, to be honest. West Palm Beach is we'll say the next we'll say frontier.
Daniel, globally?
I don't think that you're going to have the amount of new emerging markets come out and really compete with the Londons, the New Yorks, the Parises of this world. I think the pendulum swings because commerce and greed wants it to swing. Okay, so if you're looking at what's going to happen next, I think that the prices in these markets that are maturing but still secondary markets, if you move to Dubai, you can really, and you're an ultra high net worth, you're only going to be there for 6 months. It might be your residency, but you'll really only live there for 6 months, so you have to live somewhere else as well. And that's just weather conditions. So if you can ask me what's going to happen next, I think the pendulum's going to swing back to cities that already had escape velocity but struggled to sort of maintain themselves in change, like London, Paris, and New York. I think people have taken their eye off. And I'm not talking my book here, I genuinely mean this. When markets like Dubai are charging $3,500 a foot, or even up to £3,500 a foot for for residential assets that you'll use for 6 months of the year, and you can buy in Belgravia at £2,000 a foot and Mayfair at £3,000. I think all of a sudden people who have a macro view, and a lot of analysts that work for them start to realize where opportunity lies. So I wouldn't say West Palm Beach is a place that I would disagree with, because it's wonderful, but I think people may have a little bit of a shock to the system about how things pendulum back into places of escape velocity.
Fantastic. Well, a session on the delights of Miami and some of the marvellous projects that Mast and friends are working on, but a bit of boosterism for London as well, which is a great note to end on. So to my panellists, Michael Petrucci, Daniel Daggers, Neil Bowman, Hamish Brown, thank you so much.